All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. For today's show, I was joined by Dr. Leah Linder and Pam Conboy. They are the two founders of Setas Seminary, which is a psychedelic church focused on the integration of physical, psychological, and spiritual wellness, aided by the Psilocybin Sacrament. Now, the work that they are doing is truly remarkable. They just founded up this year and they are integrating the deepest holistic practices and ceremony to bring psilocybin to people in need. And I just joined their church. Anybody can join. You'll hear about how you can do it yourself in this podcast, but this is truly, truly remarkable work. And we get to learn about the psilocybin sacrament, the benefits of it, using it in ceremony and ritualistic intent. And it truly is a powerful medicine in this day and age where we're looking for solutions. We're looking for how to heal. We're looking to find community. The work that these two are doing really speaks to my heart because I've had my own psilocybin experiences that really changed my own perspective and understanding of who I am. So to see it being brought in such a ceremonial and conscious use as a medicine to people really warms my heart in a lot of ways. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did. And if you're a fan of the show, subscribe, whatever platform you are on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, leave us a 5-star review, press the like button, whatever it may be. I appreciate it. You can purchase a copy of my new book, The Final Judgment, Poems to Remember Who You Are, available now on Amazon. Appreciate everybody who has picked up a copy. It's a great way to support the show because I don't make any money doing this podcast. So, yeah, head on over to Amazon. It's right in the episode show notes. And the poems really cover a lot of the themes we talk about here on the podcast. So let me know what you think of those. Head over to my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. Subscribe, and you'll be notified of every podcast, article, blog post, poem, new book, new whatever, all there. Free to subscribe. Link to do so is in the episode show notes below. You can book a one-on-one tarot reading with me. I offer it live over Zoom, or if you want a written tarot report, the link to do either of those is in the episode show notes below. Look forward to working with you in that space. Special thank you to our one and only official sponsor, Tranquil Desires, here in Chamberlain, South Dakota. Your one-stop shop for all your spiritual, holistic wellness needs. And thank you again to Patty for all the investment she has made into the show and making it what it is right now. If you stop at Tranquil Desires, let her know Evan sent you. So let's jump into the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome in to the Fifth Dimension podcast. For today's show, I am joined by the two founders of Setas Seminary, Pam Conboy and Dr. Leah Linder. And really, as I was saying to you guys before, the work you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. A psychedelic church focused on integration of physical, psychological, and spiritual wellness, aided by the psilocybin sacrament. So there's so much to explore and uncover. But thank you both for coming on the show and for doing the work that you're doing because it's truly amazing and powerful.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Evan, for having us. We're happy to be here.
Absolutely. And I was thinking we could just sort of start and whichever you want, whoever wants to take the lead on this question. Kind of how did this come together? What was your initial line of inquiry into using the psilocybin as a tool for healing and actually bringing this church to life? Because this is such I know you guys just founded up this year, so it's a new venture in a way. What was it that brought this to life in the creation of it?
Yeah, so I'll take yeah, the story's a great one. I'll take the lead on that. So being a physician, I'm a naturopathic physician, and it was kind of serendipitous that 3 different patients all in 1 week came to me totally not associated and said, hey, I listened to this podcast or I read this article or something, and I want to start using psilocybin as part of my treatment, whether that be to, catalyze their creativity, help them with focus, concentration. And then one person had, some treatment resistant depression as well. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, well, I only really know of this from a recreational standpoint. So doing my due diligence, let me dig into the research and I'll get back to you. So I dug into the research and the research was there. There's so many benefits for depression, anxiety, PTSD, other mental health conditions like sleep disturbances, chronic pain. Even, most recently, there's some research out there on supporting people that have metabolic syndrome and diabetes. And so I was like, okay, this seems reasonable. But my biggest concern is that everybody was coming to me with their little baggies that, they got from somebody's trunk or basement or whatnot. And they didn't know what strain it was. They didn't know how much they were supposed to take. And Pam and I both worked at a nutraceutical company together, which is where we met, a professional nutraceutical company. And so, my brain, it was very much focused on safety, making sure that there wasn't any heavy metals or pesticides or chemicals in there that might affect their cognitive health, kind of putting out the fire while we're trying to get it going, kind of a thing. And also dose and knowing where the origin was and, making sure that there wasn't any mycotoxins or anything that could potentially be damaging. And so, we hadn't chatted for a couple of years, but then one day we got together for lunch and I was telling her that, these patients came to me and it is like exponential as far as, supporting their overall health. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm so into this. And it's been a really, really beautiful journey for my patients. And then Pam got this little sparkle in her eye, and I'll let her finish the rest of that story. But she was like, how do we get this out to the masses, right? We need to be able to support the mental health crisis that's going on the planet and, support people in a way that's truly meaningful. And a big reason why I love medicinal mushrooms and psychedelics is that it's the true definition of medicine. The more you use it, the less you need to achieve the same benefits. And if we can really rewire and, shift our focus to different ways of, getting endorphins in our body and living a more healthy, full life with actual medicine that's going to do that versus having people parked on SSRIs for decades. It was just kind of this spark of inspiration. We're like, how do we get this out? So Pam was the mastermind of figuring out how to do that.
Well, there's always a way, isn't there? I mean, listening to Leah and her experience with these patients, and I hadn't looked at any research in psychedelics in forever, but we're in, this real renaissance as a result of various things, one being the FDA themselves, that, that categorized psilocybin specifically as a breakthrough therapy in 2018 and 2019. Virtually every academic institution in the US is doing some psychedelic research. The studies are being published and they're in process for both macro and micro doses. And Eben, I'm sure you know people that are stuck on SSRIs. They get no support with lifestyle, no psychological support. They're stuck in their isolation or whatever is bugging them to begin with. So it's an abomination how we treat mental health right now, and that we have such an enormous increase in depression and isolation and anxiety and all of these things going on in the last 10 years and 5 years in particular. And I think, most everyone's near a stroke around, presidential election season. So there has to be a way, right? There has to be a way to bring this safe medicine to people that can really use it. And there is. So in 1993, there's the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was passed by the federal government. This was mostly in response for indigenous practices with ayahuasca, with peyote, with magic mushrooms or psilocybin like we use here. And it's really to allow for the sincere use in spiritual practice of these entheogenic or psychedelic plant medicines. So, okay, that sounds interesting. naturopathic medicine is kind of a church that I'd like to belong to, right? So naturopathic medicine, if you're not aware of it, is a root cause kind of medicine. So the physicians like Leah are trained with all of the conventional stuff, as well as all the important stuff like diet and sleep and sunshine and, micronutrients and social support and all of these bits and pieces. Sounds like a church that I'd like to belong to.
Mhm.
So there we go. We went down the path of building a church. We actually have two different businesses. One is the nonprofit Setas Seminary, which is our church of spiritual integration. And it's not sort of a church that you might, we don't talk about Jesus or Muhammad or anyone in particular. However you get to God or source or spirit is your business. If you use these medicines as part of your journey, you cannot deny that there's something beyond you. So however you see that is perfectly fine with us. What we try to do is support people with holistic lifestyle practices aided by sacraments, which is psilocybin, either in microdose pairings that we can talk about later or macrodose events. So macrodose is a psychedelic journey. Microdose more of a whisper, and it's a process and an evolution if you want some fine tuning. But the macrodose experiences are life-changing, and every time we have ceremony here, Leah and I are both astonished. Our mouths hang open. We have tears in our eyes. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. So we've only been in operation since this spring. Only had everything manufactured for microdose pairings since June. So everything is pretty new, but we're growing pretty robustly over time, really grassroots, very much by recommendation, oftentimes by medical practitioners who understand the safety profile around psilocybin, understand that this is an option that people can explore if they want off of their SSRIs, or they're not a good candidate for them, or for a variety of reasons. We have a lot of patients that come in from a neurologist here in town that have early onset Alzheimer's, and it's making microdosing alone is making a real difference for them. So it's a little bit of a fine tuning with the cognitive aspect, but I think it's more the mood and the sort of being present that is especially shared by their spouses. Like, wow, this is making a really big difference for Jim. Thank you so much. And so, everybody's happier on this very safe medicine. So we've been just delighted. It's been great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And beyond cognitive decline, just to kind of tandem off of that, I have a lot of, patients and, that are, physicians, ER nurses that are architects and high-powered lawyers and whatnot. And they're using this to help them be more calm and focused day to day and not have to rely on those other substances such as alcohol or nicotine or marijuana as far as that dulling effect to help calm them down. And so they have more creativity, more productivity as well. And so there's so many different aspects that this medicine can touch on. And that's the coolest part is that we want to put it in the water. I think everybody can benefit from it.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, I wouldn't mind if it was in my, coming from my faucet in the sink over there, paint my water with it. That sounds beautiful. And Leah, you said before we even hopped on, this is I know you guys just started up this year, but this is some of the most beautiful work you've been able to already be a part of and witness. So it's safe to say you're already seeing some of these like breakthrough, with your goals and intentions coming into it, you're already meeting them in a sense.
Yeah. And just to reiterate that, I've been a physician for well over a decade, and, naturopathic medicine is really incredible and really helps, again, get to that root cause as to why somebody is having symptoms. And so I love doing that work. And this, in addition, it's just jaw dropping. It's awe inspiring to see how how profoundly this can impact people's lives, to the point where they feel like they're new beings and they feel that they have a new lease on life and can view their world in a different way, their relationships in a different way, their work in a different way, their partnerships in a different way. So it just, I don't know, it moves me. I'm going to get a little bit teary about it because, yeah, we need wellness. We need healing on this planet. There's so much going on between, climate change and politics and wars and our water depletion taking place and our soil being contaminated. And I mean, there's so much in there. And so mental health is very often seen as a taboo that we don't talk about. Yet, you can sit in a room of 5 million people and ask anybody that hasn't experienced some sort of trauma or depression or anxiety in their life and have them raise their hand, and nobody can do it. And so I think that that's just a huge part of health and wellness that isn't being addressed. And by participating in starting this church, we're hoping that, we can get that foothold in there, that we can show people that they don't have to be stuck, that they don't have to be in this constant turmoil, mentally and also physically and spiritually. So it's awesome. Truly, in the word, awe-inspiring.
It's truly amazing. And, I can see just in the passion and the way you speak about it, I can tell it's having an impact. And, I mentioned to you too earlier that psilocybin was a big part of my own journey, and going in with a conscious ceremonial intent. I saw amazing breakthroughs in the times I would, one, either microdose regularly, or two, go on sort of more of the hero's journey and sit with a larger dose. And until you do it, it's almost difficult to even articulate the experience and what you learn about yourself. I mean, and the results kind of speak for who I am now compared to who I was before, right? And this is what I was able to let go of, what I was able to heal, what I was able to transform. And so I think that is true medicine. You mentioned earlier, true medicine is something you don't necessarily need after, right? You don't need to be hooked on psilocybin for the rest of your life, because that's not what it is. That's not the point. And I think that's why it's remarkable to see what you guys are doing and have it take place. And do you think you could speak to sort of the ways in which you engage in facilitating it, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of people who have dabbled in it for themselves personally, and let's say they have a bad trip, right? And that scares them from ever wanting to use it because, I don't know, I would make the argument a lot of times a bad trip is maybe you're confronting your own shadow and you're seeing things you're not ready for, and you're not able to necessarily properly integrate that experience because you don't have the support, you don't have the community, there wasn't necessarily the conscious intention to go in and experience that, right? So the recreational usage, while it can lead to positive change, sometimes people are confronted with a lot of those perceived negative experiences, and in turn, maybe that causes somebody's depression to worsen after. There's people who will say that was their experience. I've met people who have said that, and they don't want to touch mushrooms anymore for that reason, and I understand that. So, but could you speak to how your guys' approach is different, and then the steps that you take to really make this a positive breakthrough, whether it's a microdose or you're taking a macrodose and going into a ceremony?
Yes.
I think maybe we should start with macrodose because that takes a lot more care. So I can maybe give you an overview, an outline, and Leah can dive more into the specifics.
Okay.
So for macrodose, I'm sure you and your audience are very aware of intention setting, set and setting. You have at least heard the language. And this makes a big, big, big difference for people's outcomes. So you mentioned bad trip, but it's more like a difficult trip. And if you prepare people properly, they can pass through the difficulty and get to a place where they can actually work with what they have. So our process in general is once somebody is interested in a macro dose, we identify whether they'd like to be with a small group, because we do small groups of 5 to 6 people where we set the overall intention, or an individual journey, which is a much higher dose. And that's usually for someone that's very, very stuck. That needs a really big shakeup, but the process is fairly similar. So we'll do a preparation call and or visit, usually both, to really go over what their goals are, if they have any experience with these kind of medications, how they've tried to attempt to address these goals in the past, how psychedelics generally work in the brain, because that's really can be very helpful for someone to understand what happens. Even though you can't tell someone exactly what kind of experience they're going to have, you can kind of outline, here is the landscape. Then we make sure they have an integration journal to begin with, some preparation. We recommend, certain diet, which is really just a clean eating diet. Try to cut out all the junk food, try to cut out the sugar, try to cut out the alcohol before you go on your journey, so you have a clean slate to work from. We have, when we do ceremony, it's a full day experience. So Leah in her glory picks up everybody from Reno proper. The ceremonies are done up here at my place, about 40 minutes away in the mountains, in the desert, high desert. So folks get, a layout of the land when they arrive. Leah conducts an initial greeting, some meditative work, an initial prayer, and intention setting. With the groups, we actually go around the group and ask, what are you looking to get out of this? And everybody sends their energy to them. Then we have a formal tea ceremony. That's how we deliver the psilocybin. It's a yummy tea, so everybody really enjoys that part of it, and it's a lot easier than crunching on mushrooms that a lot of people have a hard time swallowing. The journey then goes for about 4 hours or so, give or take. I have a large property, so people can either be collectively together or apart and sit under a tree, sit in a hammock someplace else. So there's lots of individual space, but there's also group space. Usually the groups kind of start off together and they're all, very joyful, and then they separate and go in their own places to work through whatever they're working through. And then we come back together to have a meal and talk about experience and start the integration process. Integration meaning, what did I get out of it? Now, how can I make this durable? So the discussion starts the day of ceremony. We have specific integration meetings to follow as a group and individual. We offer monthly integration circles. Everybody has our alarm numbers, so we're completely available to anyone as they need questions. But then we have 2 to 3 events, church events per month, that talk about integration tools, meditation, yoga, breath work, cold plunge. If we have a cold plunge here too, that's not my favorite, but we can have a different discussion about that. It's her favorite for sure.
I'm more of a sauna person myself. So.
Me too. But we have all of these tools to keep people present in their evolution, or, the durability of their experience. And it is durable. I mean, we track people. They shift, especially with the macro doses, so dramatically that it gives you goosebumps. It really, truly does. And a lot of times when people set their intention, it's sort of based on a symptom they might have. For example, we had one woman that very overweight, tried everything. She has metabolic syndrome, on medications for that. So that was her intention, to understand why I can't get a hold of my relationship with food. What she did was walked away with having mourned her father. She had never done it. Having a completely brand new appreciation for family. She currently still 6 months later walks with her kids around the lake every evening, where she'd be halfway into a bottle of tequila previously. And this is just awareness and grounding and doing the work, you know,
Mm.
keeping it present. It's breathtaking. Really, really changes people's lives. We have lots of stories.
Right. Wow. Well, that in itself is just one, that story you just mentioned, that in itself is just one powerful example of one individual who, and you know, it's something as simple as walking your kids around the lake. You know, that makes an impact for a child in their own development, right? So, I mean, you're going
Absolutely.
in, you're not just changing your own life, you're changing your kids' lives, you're changing your spouse's lives, you're changing your whole family dynamic and creating a warm, positive environment based on those subtle changes that are occurring within ourselves by going into the work. And, you know, I don't think we all realize how much and I'm sure you could speak to this in the experiences of your patients, how much we all hold on to and how much we tend to have a tight grip on our own internal, whether it's we need to mourn or we need to cry and heal, whatever it might be, the traumas that have come to define us, we so tightly grip them without even realizing we're doing so, and it becomes so ingrained into who we
Mhm.
are. And this feels like it kind of opens up it opens the door to invite you in to actually sit with it in a safe way. Because I think
Mhm.
maybe that's what, you know, just being in normal every waking day consciousness, we're so in our own minds and feel trapped that we don't really feel like we have the opportunity to go ahead and step into healing or step into some of the deeper emotions because, you know, it doesn't feel safe to actually experience them or process
Yeah.
them, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, and I like to tell my patients, like, I'm not going to heal you. You got to heal yourself. And with that is an understanding that every single symptom that we have in our body, whether that be depression and anxiety or low back pain or acne, you know, or an eczema flare or psoriasis, all of those symptoms have an emotional component to that. And when we, you know, when we suppress with medications to numb the symptoms, to put topical steroids on it, it pushes it deeper into our bodies and it creates what we like to call dis-ease. So instead of being in flow, instead of acknowledging, you know, what our bucket is full of, right? We have this beautiful bucket. And when we put our emotions in there and our stress and our lack of sleep and our poor diet, then that bucket starts to overflow. And that's when we get symptoms. And so acknowledging that, again, it's not a bad thing to get a symptom. It's your body saying, hey, I need to pay attention to this. I need a little bit more attention in this space. And so what I love about this medicine, in addition to all of the beautiful transformation that happens, is that it opens the door to understand where those emotions are in your body, what emotions those are, where did it come from, how has it influenced my life, and how can I shift my perception to it, you know. And it's not just an emotional response, it's also a very physical response. You know, I mean, psychedelics, you know, create what's called a neuroplastic state. And neuroplasticity is this ability to actually shift neural patterns, to see, because our brains really, really love repetition, really, really love, you know, understanding what's going to happen, kind of thing, because it creates a safe space. And, you know, there's lots of benefits to that. Like when we get in our car, we want to know how to get to work every day, right? We want to recognize what our mother and father's face look like, what our friends look like. You know, I mean, there's benefit to that, but there's also, you know, the brain also wants to orient to the same situation again and again and again, because that's a safe space. That's a, you know, that's what it knows. And so by creating that neuroplastic state while also stimulating, you know, the serotonin 5-H2A receptor and BDNF, our brain-derived neurotropic factor, you know, you create this like physical change that acts as fertilizer to shift into a different perspective and, you know, promote neurogenesis, which is the forming of new neurons, which traditionally that's what we've known in medicine and science is that only is present during the first like 25 years of life, where those neural patterns are starting to form and, be steady and fluid. And what it can do is that with this synaptic plasticity that can happen is that those neural patterns can actually shift to find different ways to get to a different result. And that's really incredible. And it's also very neuroprotective too. So it can help with mood regulation. It can help with cognitive decline. And it's like that little booster smooch to your brain and your nervous system to say, let's do this a different way.
Mm.
So just to share another sort of case, another experience that tandems along with what you were saying, Evan, and the description of these physiological changes in the brain. We had a woman that came to us for a macro dose. So that's 5 grams, a pretty hefty dose of mushrooms. She had just a horribly unfortunate past with a lot of sexual abuse over a lot of years. And she really thought that she would probably have a complete meltdown, and maybe that's what she needed to do because this burden was just so big and so heavy. And she had kind of structured her whole personality around being that victim. Her takeaway, I saw her sitting under the tree, right? I have a tree sitter. He's just great. This tree that everyone likes to sit under. And she kind of came up after she was coming out of her journey and said, and by the way, she had no meltdown at all. She just sat quietly 4 hours and came up and said, wow, who will I be now without this burden? I mean, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it again. But she was able to put the bags down. Now, who am I? You can, congratulations. Welcome home. Now you just do the work to remember who you are. It really is life-changing. It can be for some people.
Right. And that's beautiful. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head because I love that idea of remembering who you are, right? Because it's more so, I think once we let go of these traumas and we let go of the burdens we carry, it's not really about adding anything new. It's not really about, okay, now I need to, what am I going to put in place of it? We don't need to put anything in place of it. We can kind of be ourselves, maybe for the first time, right? And would you say, I'm assuming you have people from all walks of life coming to your space. Like, this is something that it doesn't really matter what your background is, what your religion is, male, female, any of these, all these different, identity factors, right? You're kind of finding the same results regardless of the background people are taking on.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that are in their 20s all the way into their late 80s.
Oh, wow.
And so like all different walks of life. I don't, just to go back to what you said, I don't think it's about letting go of our trauma. I think it's about reorienting to it so that it doesn't feel like a negative thing, because being human's really freaking hard. And everything that we go through makes us who we are and, gives us our perception on the world. And so again, like there's no bad trips. Trauma is there to teach us something. And so when we have the ability to reorient to what that is, then that just opens up brand new doors of recognition of where our wounds are, what work we need to do, how we can actually, what our bodies, minds, and spirits are actually craving, and start doing that work to support those things versus trying to just push it away or, oh, I'm done with this. Like we've never put it down. We just give it, psychedelics have the opportunity, especially with integration, diet and lifestyle and community and love, those things help us reorient to why we went through that trauma and how we can actually use that moving forward. Because I like to say that trauma can be your superpower. If you can reorient to it and find out A, not only are you resilient, but B, what you can do to support yourself moving forward so that you don't get back into that same situation.
Right. And sort of how I like to see it when, especially with the macro doses, you can be in this river of shit, right? Up to your eyeballs. You can barely see past it. You can't breathe. You're stuck. The psilocybin or, another traditional psychedelic can take you out of the river, put you on a bank from, a cognitive, emotional perspective. So you can still look at your shit, but it's not up to your eyeballs. You can actually see it for what it is. And it's not really mine. It's just part of my journey. And let me manage this like I would manage anything else in my life. And it's really empowering, and it puts people in a whole different mindset that it's not happening to me. It's part of me, but it's not happening to me. I'm not suffocating anymore.
Absolutely. And
it's just,
sorry. You can go ahead.
I was just going to add to that and say it's just the difference between it's kind of like having shame on you, right? Shame says I'm a bad person, right? Versus something bad happened to me. So you get that different perceptual shift in there that, it's not you. It's outside of you and it's affected you, but it doesn't have to be your story. It doesn't have to be your identity.
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say it's like rewriting the story in a sense, right? And kind of changing the framework of it to where, because the scars in a sense tell a story, and we get to decide whether we're kind of picking at them and perpetuating and furthering feeling the trauma, or getting to use it as experiential wisdom and let us grow from it, right? And I mentioned to Pam briefly before you hopped on, Leah. One thing that I do is tarot. I didn't mention this part, but so I drew a tarot card before this podcast, just out of curiosity. Something I like to seek, like, all right, what's sort of a theme? I drew the strength card, and then I went to a different deck, an oracle deck, and I pulled a strength card. So two strength cards in two different decks, just out of one of those small little coincidences. But but to me, it's like, okay, what this is doing is it feels like it's unlocking, and I can speak from my own experiences, like a newfound sense of strength and resilience and an ability to show up for ourselves. Because I don't think, even as people are going through these traumas and maybe they haven't gone through the healing journey yet, just the ability to hold them takes a tremendous amount of strength in itself. The ability to, we don't realize just how resilient we actually are. And I think once we can kind of get that sense, which seems to be what the sacrament offers in a lot of ways, that's empowering. It's like, wow, I actually went through all of that and here I still am. That's kudos to me. Like, that's incredible, right? And it can really, it really unlocks something where, that's strength is hardly just a physical trait. I mean, we tend to relegate it to physicality and force or whatnot, but to me, strength is really a mastery of one's emotions and the ability to sit with yourself in a vulnerable space and to choose to grow and to sit into it, right? And so I you appreciate that, because I think Pam mentioned you're more familiar with tarot than she is, but I drew the strength. Strength is the theme that I get from, when you're going into yourself and really choosing to look at this and choosing to be present.
And when, just to tandem off of that, like one quote that I love so much, Simon Sinek said it, and he said that true strength is the courage to admit weakness. So giving yourself the opportunity to recognize that we are vulnerable and that we do have things that are challenging in our lives, and the courage to admit that is truly the first step to healing. And I feel that psychedelics give us the opportunity to witness that, to witness not only our weakness, but also that resilience, that strength that I have made it through. It's all in context, is that I don't really believe that there's strength or weakness, that it's how you orient to it.
Absolutely. You know, something that I was thinking about earlier too, as you were talking about the actual ceremonies and how they take place, Pam, is something I really appreciate what you're doing is you're not trying to make this a one size fits all approach, right? Just having the open space and letting people kind of go on their own individual journey and letting the psilocybin you know, interact with each person, right? I think one of the big problems with modern medicine in a way is, you know, we prescribe these SSRIs and we have these specific treatments and different, uh, you know, health outlets or whatnot. A lot of it tends to have a one size fits all approach. And I mean, you could say that across the board, whether it's education, all these different areas, right? That it's one size fits all. But to me, when I'm looking at the work you guys are doing, even though, all right, it's psilocybin, sure, we can all, maybe it's the same mushroom in a sense. Um, it's vastly different than just prescribing an SSRI or trying to cover a blanket over the whole problem, you know, and that to me that feels like that's such an important aspect of the actual work you guys are doing and how you're approaching prescribing this as a medicine.
Mm-hmm. Again,
So
it's not about suppression. It's about, exploration. Sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to interrupt.
oh, no, that's okay. It's exactly what I was going to say. It's experience and exploration, and we all do these things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I personally will sit either quietly or laughing hysterically, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in the grass or something. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want any interaction at all. Some people are like that. Some people will walk around. They have a lot of kinetic energy and it helps them process what they're going through in their minds. Some people want to just be held. Some people want to be in the hot tub. You know, we allow for that, you know, as opposed to sitting in a room in a space with headphones on and eye shades on, because that's not life. That's not how you process things, generally speaking. And not everybody, you can't put them all in the same bucket. You're just not going to get all the value that you could get out of it. So we are very much proponents about, you know, of this is going to work for you as it should work for you in your way. So you're going to have this is sort of the landscape of all the possible experiences, which is kind of hard to put into words anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But you can walk through the whole exploration the way that works best for you. And we're just here to make sure you're okay, to make sure you're safe, that you're hydrated, that you're not getting sunburned, that if you need a hug, you get a hug. But we want to kind of extricate ourselves a little bit because these are very personal journeys. We want to give you as much comfort and latitude as we can to allow you to have the deepest experience possible.
Mm-hmm. And really, psychedelics in general are non-specific amplifiers. So they're going to bring to the conscious brain what the subconscious is going through. And for every person, that's going to be different. And for every journey is going to be different as well. And so we can't expect the same thing every single time, even as our own individual selves. So it's kind of like peeling off the layers of the onion, and we do our best to support whatever layer of the onion is being brought to the surface, during their journey. And for every person, it's different. We're not an algorithm, and conventional medicine is wonderful, but it really is emergency medicine that's put into long-term care, which is why everything's an algorithm. Like you have XYZ, then you get this prescription. And we like to look at it very differently, that we want to honor and witness the individual for themselves and support them with what they need.
Beautiful. And I think that should be the foundation of medicine and healing and wellness as a whole, right? I mean, if you go, I have a large background in the fitness industry. I'm about to get my personal training certificate and all that. I've been working out for a long time and a depth of knowledge with exercise. And for example, you can't put a one size fits all approach on somebody's workout programs, right? I'm not going to give a 70-year-old woman who has arthritis and a vast health challenges versus a a 30-year-old professional athlete. If I gave the same workout program, either the old lady's going to die, or the professional athlete's not going to get a workout, right? If I put them on the same plan, right? So, and I think regardless, when it comes to health in general, and I think we really do need to honor the individual experience and the individual needs. And I think that's you know, with modern medicine and allopathic care and, emergency medicine has saved a tremendous amount of lives, and there's benefits to it, certainly, but it's easy to forget about the individual, or to just write off a prescription and say, this will help you, without really addressing the deepest roots. And I'm hopeful, like with work that you guys are doing, that this is sort of I've been talking about this type of thing for a few years. And, now, for example, this year, all right, I see you guys are doing this, like you started up this year. To me, it's like, oh, this shift is happening, right? This is becoming an emphasis. There are people taking action. There are people going and making this a priority. So, it gives me a tremendous sense of optimism, that kind of as we're navigating the future, and there's always going to be challenge and turmoil. You can't, without challenge, what good is life anyways, right? I mean, so it's not, we're not trying to get rid of the challenges, but I look at the future and I see what you guys are doing. I can't help but feel incredibly optimistic that this this type of work is going to show up more and more and more. If anything, it feels like you two are kind of pioneering a movement in a lot of ways. And, it kind of just takes one to plant the seed, and then others catch on and others start, doing this same type of deal, right? I mean, do you guys kind of have that same outlook as you're going through this, and thinking that, you're doing this work, there's so many people benefiting, and anybody can clearly benefit, like we talked about. What's kind of your long-term outlook in that way?
So to give you a little bit more excitement too, Evan, I mean, it's not just us, right? I think we do things a little bit more uniquely holistic than maybe some of the other churches, like ayahuasca churches here in the United States, which there are certainly some. But there's real reason for hope. I mean, I just got back from an integrative mental health conference, and psychedelics was on the menu. And we had a lot of interest because there are publications, right? I mean, there's more research that's out and available, and the understanding of mechanisms is more clear now. So physicians and other practitioners are looking to, okay, I accept that this is possible, and it's really heartening that we have this option. Now, where do I get it? Where do I get a safe supply? So that is really part of what we hope to do as far as expanding, because it's just the two of us right now. So, we couldn't have 10 times the ceremonies that we have currently within a month. It's just not possible. But there are people that we'd like to collaborate with. Healthcare professionals are a great place for us to start, because they have certain expectations. They understand about the importance of quality and how we go through our process. So that's a big part of what we hope to elevate, is awareness that there is a place to get it under a protected structure, because basically all we require is membership. That's our protection mechanism. And that the practitioner, or even if they're not a practitioner, this is safe, it's clean, it has a protocol associated with it, it has other botanicals and functional mushrooms to help you achieve your goal. I'm talking just the microdosing now. But I had a lot of inquiries from this conference and another one previous, and we're going to another one next month. Do you travel? Well, yeah, we could travel, if there is sufficient demand. So I think another possibility to expand this approach would be, training and affiliations, because, two people cannot handle all the demand, which is beautiful. It's just how we grow, and it's going to be through collaborative efforts for sure.
Right. Sort of the grassroots networking starting from where you're at. And, I like it. Like you're saying, I think that's what, we're looking at. It's always impossible to predict the future in a sense, but you look 10 years from now, the type of expansions that what you guys are going to have, or what, and even any listener of the podcast, the type of expansions and growth that occur throughout life, it's to a scale that we can hardly even begin to comprehend, and rationalize ahead of time, right? So, I look at the seeds that are being planted with the work that you guys are doing, and attending conferences and just sharing it. You know, it's very difficult to measure our own impact that we have oftentimes, and so you could plant the seed for somebody else to start a similar mission, start a similar church, engage, or even just engage in a healing process, right? And go to one of these conferences. Oh, that's an interesting way to approach that. That feels like a space where I could, maybe somebody's had thoughts about wanting to engage with psilocybin. That feels like a space where I would feel safe doing that, right? And just kind of opening up, like you were talking about earlier, kind of opening up the doors for people to kind of take their own individual journey and individual exploration. At the end of the day, that is what it's all about. And I'm hopeful that the only one thing I worry about, and I think I might have mentioned this, Pam, but we talked about something similar on the last call we had. The only thing I kind of keeps me not, I wouldn't say pessimistic is the right word, that I keep an eye on is, if you look at, let's say, the tobacco industry, where, tobacco is a beautiful medicinal plant that's been used for thousands of years, but kind of hijacked mainstream, throw in additives, chemicals, becomes not ideal, right? I kind of wonder if the cannabis industry is going the same way, mainstream, larger corporations, you don't really know what's being sprayed on some of the plants sometimes. Like, is it all organic, healthfully sourced? Can't really determine that often, right? And as psilocybin becomes more normalized, and uh, I just wonder if there's going to be sort of, because how medicine works, there's sort of a centralization process, right? And so if it takes that same route and we lose some of the sacredness to it, and benefits that that you guys are seeing every day, if it's more centralized, do we have that same type of uh, benefit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
You,
think three things come up from that.
I got my three
Leah's
things.
probably thinking the same thing. To me, from your conversation, three different concerns come up. One is, yes, buyer beware. You should know what strains, have them tested. If you're not doing it yourself, know that they are tested, organically sourced, and all of that. And, this is these are our pairings, right? So, I mean, we do everything really top notch, high professional. We have all of the certifications and all of that. So, just buyer beware on that aspect of it. Second thing is, yes, as there's more research, there are more companies that want to benefit or financially benefit from it. The only way to do that is through a patentable molecule. So most of the research being done now is with small molecule, but that kind of takes the medicine part away from it, meaning all of the other anti-inflammatories and all of the other good things that come with the whole mushroom. And Leah can talk about that in more detail. But that is a detraction. Once you start getting down into that small molecule, and then it becomes medicinalized. So up in Oregon, the way that's the only state really fully decriminalization. And the way they have it set up is that you go to a room. I'm sure they have a couch or something comfortable, a room, and you get the eye shades and the music, and somebody sits with you. So you have some kind of sitter with you, but no other tools for integration. That has to be done entirely separately. And there's no way for you to personalize the experience. And they're charging, and this is not necessarily the organization's fault, because they're being charged for insurance and state required training and whatever else that they have to pay for, but they're charging really high sums for microdose sitting. Microdose, if anyone in your audience is not aware, you get no psychedelic response from a microdose. So that seems criminal to me. So you have these kind of three buckets, right? Quality, the whole versus small molecule, and then the whole process of delivering it in the system. So the way we're doing it through the church, we have this place to operate, but it also gives us latitude to do it the way we think it should be done, much more holistically, really with this whole naturopathic type approach, so people get the greatest benefit.
Yeah, so it's not just about the journey, right? It's about what you do with the journey. So that's a huge part of it. And to add to what Pam said too, we definitely are on the same three big topics in there, is that, you know, whole mushrooms are going to contain a wide variety of compounds, like polysaccharides, you know, your beta glucans, your enzymes, your terpenes, your sterols, you know, all of these things that are going to work together to enhance your overall health benefits. So supporting your immune system, supporting your cognitive function, you know, decreasing inflammation in your body. And again, they work in an entourage effect where, you know, whole plants, you know, we can take our multivitamin, but really you need to eat your broccoli, you know, kind of a thing, because there's so many other benefits in there too. And, you know, from a broader perspective is that, you know, you get that balanced nutrient profile and there's a lower risk of, I mean, you can't really overdose on mushrooms, but as far as like, you know, side effects or bad trips or things like that are concerned, it lowers the risk because this beautiful, you know, packet of a fruit, you know, that is the mushroom has everything in there that our bodies have co-evolved with, you know, that our nervous system understands how to deal with it. Our digestive system has to deal with it, and, you know, creates more bioavailability for, you know, the active ingredients to be in your body. And then another huge point that we need to point out is the sustainability of it. You know, I mean, mushrooms grow naturally. You know, there are the mycelial network that's in, you know, Oregon is the largest living organism on the planet that helps, you know, the trees communicate with each other, that, you know, supports the animals in that environment, that supports us humans that we've co-evolved. And I know Pam wants to talk about the stoned ape theory, so I'll give you that one. But the environmental sustainability of utilizing whole plant medicine is so much more important than let me get into a lab, use all of these resources to extract a single molecule that's going to have this specific effect on the body, versus recognizing that the intelligence is already predetermined, like has already been created and evolved over, you know, eons. And so that's another really big reason why we use whole plant medicine, is for that sustainability factor and supporting the earth.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, stoned ape is fun.
I love I like the stoned ape theory. You know, I actually had early on, I started podcasting in 2019. I remember the first, like, I guess you'd say big name guest I ever had was Dennis McKenna. I had him on the podcast and we talked about, you know, the psychedelic. Yeah, his brother. Yeah, his brother,
Oh,
Dennis.
I see. Cool.
But yeah, I know he mentioned this. He knows the stone ape theory, and he kind of brought it up to me. But yeah, I didn't anticipate going into the stone ape theory, but I like that we're there. I mean, could you speak about that? And, you know, because it kind of speaks to the origins of who we are in a lot of ways, which I am very deeply interested in personally, and what this podcast is all about.
So Terence McKenna, no longer with us, but really quite the psychonaut scientist, and you can get some of his books, certainly. But his proposition is that, you know, as we're evolving into human beings, these mushrooms had been growing on cow patties and whatnot, and, you know, you're always foraging for food. And the discovery, just like the monkeys of today, when the fruit gets ripe, you know, they all have a drunken party. Well, they were tripping on these mushrooms that they were picking out of the cow patties. And what he says is that the mushrooms have a very strong influence on the development of our prefrontal cortex. So we had, in the evolutionary timeline, we grew a lot of brain, executive functioning kind of brain, in a very short period of time. And he really directly correlates that with the use of psilocybin and the wide availability of it, which makes a lot of sense because that's what it's doing, right? It's expanding your neural network. It's expanding the connections between neurons. It's actually growing brain.
Right. Well, I was gonna say,
And specifically for the prefrontal cortex, it is about our language development. It's also about interpersonal relationships, so social bonding, empathy, cooperation, and so if we think about the evolution of human being, that we are communal creatures, that we are, wired to be social and interactive and have that cooperation go on, psilocybin helps create those connections and helps enhance those parts of the brain that show us that we are not isolated, that we are part of the collective, whether that be the collective human species, whether that be part of the collective energy that is the universe, in its totality, that it helps us recognize that we're not alone, and we are part of this beautiful expression of what energy is, and get to be in human form in this, in this lifetime around. But lets us recognize that we are part of the greater collective.
Right. Definitely. Kind of takes you out of the limiting, almost sometimes our perceived identity and physical, what we define ourselves by can be very limiting on the grand scope of who it is that we actually are. Because it kind of in my own psilocybin experiences, it's like you kind of see yourself outside of yourself of, oh, I am way more than just Evan McDermott and living here and doing this. Wow, there is a lot more here. Let me explore this a little bit. And I think that comes out through our creativity. It comes out through our connections and our experiences and what we explore. And it kind of gets me excited, and we're not going to have in our lifetime per se, a shift of monkey to human, but let's say we come back to psilocybin and come back to sort of our roots, the type of expansions that's possible for us, not just individually, but collectively, what we can kind of grow into. It feels like it helps aid us in more of a, because a natural evolution process, right? I think we're all meant to continually evolve and grow within our own individual lifetimes. And as time goes on through hundreds and thousands of years, you see that growth play out on a collective level and how we grow and how we change and what we prioritize. And, from the stoned ape theory, I mean, I think, what was that, 100,000 years ago or something along those lines? And it was a shift in consciousness that took place thousands and thousands and thousands of years as they're engaging eating psilocybin, right? So to me, it kind of shows the infinite possibility that we have to explore and experience and to grow, because I've found every time I go into a psilocybin experience or other psychedelic experience, I have a tendency to want to reference back to what I've already experienced, but then it's like, oh no, that there
Not today, Evan.
Nope.
That's it.
New depths, new exploration. Wasn't anticipating that one, but I guess that's the type of exploration I needed, right?
Yeah.
But this is okay. Sorry. See, we get excited.
We get so excited that we go like,
yeah. This is something that, and my comment is very quick, something that people ask, right? That is it, do I do this once? Do I do this every week? I mean, what do I do? And it's a similar answer to what's it going to be like for me? It depends. You'll know. We're not going to need to tell you. You will know if and when it's time to do this again. You'll have a different experience the next time. It's sort of you have a relationship with the mushrooms now. So you're going to tell us. We don't need to prescribe anything to you. And same with the experience. Will you have a happy experience? Will you giggle? Will you focus on something? I don't know. We try to get people to put their mind in an intention space, something they want to work on. But what you actually get out of it is usually what's below your intention, what's driving it. And you'll progress as you're intended to.
I agree. Well, and I guess my comment goes on both what you guys were saying too, is I have a fundamental philosophical perspective that there are two main emotions in the world, that there is fear and there's love. And we have a lot of systems in place that will, as a means of control, produce more fear. And I think that that's part of this evolution of, incorporating psychedelics into our day-to-day lives, or on journeys that are specific to, when your body is ready for it, that help enhance that innate perception that love is more powerful than fear, and that collectively we can do this together and collectively evolve and solve the problems of our modern world. And we do it with the intelligence of the mushrooms, of recognizing that, no, this doesn't have to be a daily thing. Yes, it absolutely can. I wouldn't encourage doing a macro dose or a hero dose every single day, because that definitely shake up the system. But again, the mushrooms are going to tell you, and your body's going to tell you when it needs some more love, right? When the next layer of the onion needs to be pulled off. And that's why it's so important to have this integration, so that we can incorporate, what the mushrooms showed us, or what perception was opened, and how we can contribute to that, how we can move in that direction, the shifts that we need to take. And I think collectively as a consciousness, to go back to what you're saying of how this is going to grow and evolve in 10 years, we don't know. But the coolest part is that if more people are starting to participate in this, the exponential benefits that could come from more love, more compassion, more community, more awareness, and more of that recognizing, again, our resilience and our strength in our individual selves, and then expanding that into so many more people. How exciting is that to think about? What if, again, putting it in the water for everybody, what if we all collectively decided that we wanted to go through this really big evolution? What if we wanted to get to this higher vibration as a human species? And that when you said that, maybe we're not going to experience the evolution of ape to human within our lifetime, I kind of want to believe that we might have the opportunity to do that in our lifetime. If enough people are, the collective consciousness is saying, oh, we're going to do this a different way. Think about the possibilities. It's so freaking exciting to be oh, what if we could just freaking love each other more? If we did that base off, if that was the only thing that shifted, that we collectively could look at another human or a tree or a river or the stars with more love and adoration. Ooh, get out of that fear mindset, baby. Things can happen.
Oh yeah.
Compassion's a big thing that comes with the mushrooms. It comes for yourself and everything around you. This is kind of the Church of Spiritual Integration. That's sort of the whole idea, that you tend to yourself, and then you can expand all of that newfound love and compassion and gratitude beyond yourself, and it shifts everything.
Right. Definitely. And, I was thinking the same word, compassion, because even when you kind of take the etymology of it or break it down, it's calm, to be with, and then passion that often can be translated to suffering, or it can be translated, so to be compassionate towards with somebody is to be with them in the space that they're at. And, I think you kind of have to be compassionate towards yourself first to actually truly be compassionate with others and sit in what's going on in here? Let me feel it. What walls do I have up over my own heart that is preventing me from fully expressing love, right? Because love is it takes a lot of courage to actually love, to actually go out and really put your heart out there and sit with people from that place. And but if we can do that and we can find it within ourselves, then we're able to go and do the same things for others. And that's, I think, where that paradigm kind of does shift, because really the collective and the macro level is just a reflection of what's going on for the majority at the individual level. You know, the macro reflects the micro and the micro reflects the macro. Most times, you know, they kind of go hand in hand. So you shift the micro, well, over time, naturally, the macro level, it changes too, because it's just reflecting us. It's kind of pointing a mirror at back where we need to sit within ourselves, I think, oftentimes. And okay, this is what we're experiencing and fearing collectively. How do I play into that? How do I do the same thing? Maybe in my relationships or in my day to day, or what am I projecting? What am I, it can all be a tool for self-reflection and self-growth when we really kind of embody that perspective. And I don't know, to me, it feels like psilocybin is the closest thing to a perfect elixir of medicine for that type of healing that we need uh, on a societal level. You know, there, like you said earlier, there's no one size fits all solutions, but this might be the closest thing that we found, right? In a lot of
Well,
ways.
yeah, there's an old proverb that as physicians we're taught is that healer, heal thyself. And I truly have a fundamental belief that we are all healers.
Mm,
And when we go into our own heart space and our own mental space and help heal that, then we have not only the compassion, but the capacity to also sit with others and help support them on their journey too.
mm, definitely. And I love that. And I think we can all engage first in the self-healing. And when we learn how to heal ourselves, that's when we truly get to be able to heal others and grow and, find love within our own hearts, right? I mean, it's been kind of the essence of my own spiritual journey in a sense, is coming back to love. And I remember one of the first books I read somebody gave me was Be Here Now by Ram Dass.
Mm.
And that was all about be here now, be in the space of love. That's all there is. It's all you need. What else is there to do? And at the end of the day, I mean, it's kind of right. I guess that is all I need to do, It's to be here now, it's to be present, it's to be loving, it's to be compassionate. And there's a good quote that I often reference by Ram Dass where he says, it kind of puts it into perspective on, we're looking at purpose, and, sometimes it can be very easy to look at the chaotic state of the world and feel disheartened. His quote was along the lines of, when somebody asks me whether it's the age of Aquarius or the Armageddon, I kind of cop out and say, I don't know. But the way I look at it is my job is to quiet my mind, see where suffering is at, and work to heal that and be present with that and love. And so regardless, my job is kind of the same, whether we're entering a new age of Aquarius and light and love, or if it's the end of the world. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to do the same thing. So I guess it doesn't matter which one of those two things are happening. My job, my mission is still what I'm doing. So that's kind of something I've always come back to kind of.
Well, speaking of, so you're a tarot reader and like probably have some astrology in your background too. So we're getting ready to head into the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn
Mhm.
coming in November. So it's a very exciting time of expansion and potentially another quote unquote age of Aquarius, which is about this cognitive evolution, about this emotional evolution, about a shift in consciousness and overall perception of what it is to be human on this planet. So it's pretty exciting that all of this is happening in conjunction with this psychedelic revolution. And I think that there definitely is, I don't really believe in coincidence. I believe that there is a collective movement that is, driving this desire, this need, this hunger for deeper expansion of what it is to be human.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. And I think we kind of need to go into the place that we've gone into to actually have the opportunity to heal and grow and evolve in the way that we now can, learning what we did, um, for the purpose of, okay, we see how far into the pits of despair we can take ourselves, and how far into materialism and, destruction of the planet, and all these different things that are
Mhm.
taking place in the world. We see what we're capable of on one side. So what if we harness that power and use it towards creation and towards beauty, and sort of honor the truth of who we are, right? And so I
Mhm.
think, you're right in the sense is there is, I've noticed this shift taking place in a lot of, I would say, structures and institutions, and the conversations people are having. It is sort of more geared towards this inward, I'd say almost like an inward revolution, and a real focus on self, I guess self mastery, but emotional regulation, and honoring what's going on inward, and taking the individual heart and love, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's very much in a line with the planetary shifts. And I just recently did a podcast on this with an astrologist who was telling me, talking about that very same thing. And this is, there will be challenges, and there will be, because you kind of have to sit in the darkness to understand it and find the light. Um, but when you do that, when you can step into that space with courage, you'll be assisted through it. You'll be guided through it. And, I think even a psychedelic journey, it has its challenging moments, but you get that like touch of grace in a way, like
Mhm.
a hand of the divine reaching out and saying, "Let's go. You're all right. We're gonna make it through this. Wow, you're quite
Mhm.
resilient." And that I think is what it feels kind of, maybe we're stepping into sort of the space of darkness on a more collective level, and individuals are going on this journey, but they're finding that beauty and that light through it, and kind of stepping up into their own, right? That for me. That's why too. It's a really exciting time, a really
Mhm.
exciting movement, and like I said, I think you two are kind of pioneering, almost the medicinal avenue and the path people can take to, hey, let's explore this. These are the shifts that's happening, and maybe you're feeling certain ways. Let's explore. Let's see what's going on inward. Let's see what you find, right? And you don't need to place a label on it ahead of time, even to say this is what you're going to heal. But let's go explore it. There's a reason we feel called to it, and I kind of live by the motto: the medicine finds me when I'm ready, and I know when that
Absolutely.
is. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
beautiful, awesome. I know we're almost at about an hour and a half now. So, Pam and Leah, where would you, if you have any like projects or exciting things coming up for the rest of this year, I'd love to hear about it, and sort of your, what the rest of 2024 is looking like. But where also can listeners go to, one, interact with your work, kind of get more involved in what you're doing, but also, what kind of, where somebody who's interested in this, and where would you send them? What is sort of the way to start engaging in this process, whether it's psilocybin or on this next step of the journey? Maybe they don't have a church directly in their community that's offering this type of support. Um, what do you recommend? What would the next steps be?
So they can start with our website. So the front end of our website is pretty generic by design.
Hmm.
But they can become, anyone in the US can become a member. There's no cost at all associated with it. This is just our protection mechanism under religious freedom. So it takes 2 minutes to become a member. Then you'll get access to the back end of the website that has an abundance of information about psilocybin, psychedelics in general, what we offer as far as our microdose pairings and ceremony and whatnot. So that's a nice first start to see what the science is behind psilocybin, how we operate here. You'll see all our events on the front end of the website, and we're not doing virtual events quite yet, but that's something that we do intend to offer in the future. So that's really a good first start, but there are lots of other resources into psychedelics for clinical or mental health purposes. And it wouldn't take too much of a deep dive to find that just in a Google search.
Hmm.
Psychedelics today is fantastic. There are plenty of them, and a lot of really good accessible science a lot of great podcasts. One of the folks that we work with, he calls himself the spirit pharmacist, Ben Malcolm. Fantastic information if you're a science nerd. He goes into great detail about how all of this works. He provides a lot of reviews on the newest research coming out. So he's a great resource for someone that's more scientifically oriented. But our website is a nice first start. It'll give you a good taste of why we use this particular agent for our plant medicine and how we operate as a church. And then, like I said, anyone in the US can become a member and be protected. And we will ship microdose pairings if that's what you're interested in. Macrodose journeys, we currently only do that under our supervision, and they're only done here. Although we are talking to a few other collaborators, because if there is demand and it makes sense and we can cover our expenses, we will take it elsewhere and help someone else start this, because the need and the demand is really, it's pretty breathtaking. People want another option.
Right. Definitely. Well, I'll have to become a member. I wasn't sure what the what the process was.
Come on over.
Because I was like, oh, because I was thinking that sounds like a church I would want to be a part of. I mean, so I'll definitely become a member myself, and I would highly encourage any of the listeners to do the same, because I fully support the work you guys are doing and the difference that you're making, and the fact that you've really just started up this year. You're already seeing the profound shifts and transformations, and can call it the most beautiful work you've been a part of in such a short amount of time. The future is just so bright for what you guys are doing, and I think psychedelics as a whole, certainly. But I want to give that appreciation to you both, because this is life-changing medicine for a lot of people, and you're really offering a service that I think is so needed in this world.
We're just getting rid of the blockage. This is not our thing. We're just offering a path.
And we both feel humbled and honored to participate in this work. Again, we're just a conduit. So yeah, it's awesome. Come on over, guys. Come join us.
I love it. Well, and I've heard the saying before, a shaman will never call themselves a shaman, but I look at what you're two doing, and it's like modern day shamanism in a sense, right? Is kind of a role, a space that you're kind of embodying in a way, if I want to put it in that terms. A lot of similarities, I think, in the archetype of a shaman, in the space you two both are stepping into and providing in a lot of ways. So I'll happily throw that word at you and say modern day shamans for the Psilocybin Sacrament. But thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I mean, as the journey continues to unfold, I'd love to have more conversations and keep the conversation going, because I mean, this is a topic we could just explore on hours on end. And as you're, you're doing more ceremonies, engaging in more work, I'd love to kind of just keep having you come on, talk about the growth, talk about the expansion, talk about the new insights, because this field and this topic is only going to keep growing in itself. So, I feel honored to even hold the space for you two to come on and share what you're doing, because it's tremendous work. So I definitely love to keep doing more.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah. Very kind. And maybe at some point too, we would be able to connect you with someone who's had a profound experience, because there's nothing like hearing and seeing it from the source.
Absolutely. I would love that. And if you find somebody who you think would be interested in doing that and want to kind of share, I'm all for it. I love the storytelling. I think everybody has there's people I've asked to come on podcasts before, and they say, I'm no good for a podcast. And then it blows me away when they come on and share the stories of their life and experiences. I think everybody has such a gift to offer when, in their story and just who they are. So I would love to share this space in that way and open that up to anybody you would recommend, for certainly, who's gone through the experiences. I think that'd be a lot of fun and great way to share it, because you're right. The testimony in itself that it's powerful. It's really powerful.
Well, and if that's the case too, then you need to fly out to Reno and come have a journey with us and experience how we facilitate and what your experience was too. We'd be honored to host you.
I would love to. I was thinking the same thing, to be honest with you. So that's something I would definitely love to do, and I'll be a member. So yeah. Perfect.
All things are possible with membership, Evan.
That is correct. I would love to do that. Well, we will I'm putting that intent out into the universe right now, so that we'll consider that a done deal for the very near future. But Pam and Leah, thank you guys so much again for coming on the show. I mean, this is a lot of fun for me, and like I said, the work you guys are doing is marvelous. So I can't thank you enough for this conversation, and just for being you.
Thank you for having us. It's wonderful. This was a great conversation.
Really was. Thank you so much. And we'll expect to hear from you with your plane ticket information soon.
Absolutely. I will I'll let you know when I got that flight booked, and when I'm looking, I'll go see what because I'm assuming on your when you become a member, you can kind of see when all the different ceremonies and whatnot are taking place, or is that more of like you just kind of
so the group ceremonies are on there. It's just through the end of the year. I need to upload everything for next year here pretty shortly. But if you were interested in a solo, a macro journey for yourself, we schedule that as the need arises.
Oh,
so
okay.
we can be flexible. We usually schedule these things around the weekend, so people have a day or two to kind of resettle into all the new pathways, because you get a real good shakeup when you have a heavy dose.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've had the experience before of heavy psychedelic experience on the weekend, and then Monday morning comes, I got to go back into society and be and participate in being a human again. I don't know if I understand how to do that, but
or how to read or how to
yeah,
right,
exactly. I come from an education and teaching background, and early I've had that happen where heavy psychedelic experience on Saturday, and then Monday morning I'm back teaching. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
You gotta definitely take time for integration.
Yeah. But awesome. And thank you all the listeners for tuning in, and I highly encourage everybody to go and become members. But that's going to wrap up this episode, and this will not be the last episode you see for these two. But thank you all for tuning in, and we shall see you all next time. Special thank you to Pam and Leah for coming on the Fifth Dimension. This is a fun conversation, and really the work they're doing is remarkable. So I hope you guys got from it as much as I did. I encourage you guys to become members. Let's grow this community. Let's grow this movement so that everybody has access to this medicine if they need it. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you are on. Go subscribe at Substack, McDermott.substack.com. Highly encourage you guys to pick up a copy of my new book, The Final Judgment. You can also book a tarot reading with me as well, and the links to do that are in the episode show notes below. It's going to wrap up this episode, and I will see you all next time.